What up, fight fans? It is time for the Iman Report. It is Saturday night, August 15th, and we had a spectacular fight card tonight between it was the trilogy, the finale between Stipe Miocic and Daniel Cormier 3, and it did not fail to disappoint. It was a great fight. On a scale of 1 to 10, I give this fight an awesome 10. Good fight between the two. In round one, it was DC grappling. But then, starting in the second round, Stipe adjusted, defended the takedown, and it was the Stipe show for the remaining 4 rounds. Stipe almost gets a finish in the second round, but the clock got there before Stipe could get the finish on DC. DC and Stipe would exchange blows in the third, fourth, and fifth rounds. And DC did recover from the knockdown. It took a while in the third round, but he cleared the cobwebs. But this was a very entertaining trilogy. And in the end, all 3 judges had it for Stipe 49-46, 49-46, 48-47. Stipe is now what I would say is got to be the GOAT at heavyweight. I think Stipe might be one of the longest reigning champions at the heavyweight division. The only other fighter besides John Jones to beat Daniel Cormier. That's a big accomplishment. He has a win on who I think is going to be his next opponent, Francis Ngannou. That will probably happen sometime next year. That is going to be an interesting fight right there. Question is going to be, how much did Ngannou learn from the first fight? Will it be can Ngannou solve Stipe Miocic? That's going to be interesting there. Of course, wins over Junior Dos Santos, Alistair Overeem, Fabricio Verdum. The list goes on. He's defended the belt 5 times, and so he is one of the GOATs at, he's probably one of the GOATs at heavyweight. After Kane is a GOAT at heavyweight for a while. Kane was unstoppable at his prime. I think him and Kane are the GOATs at heavyweight, and now DC is going to enjoy his 38th birthday. How much longer is he going to be in the octagon? I think he'll fight. I think we will see the rematch probably next summer or so. Certainly, I think Stipe will be doing firefighting, so that's always going to take away from his career in the UFC. I think maybe he fights 2 more times and he calls it a career himself. Honestly, I think he'll probably fight Ngannou, and if he beats Ngannou, you could see a super fight come. And that's the only thing that could leapfrog Ngannou, is if we do see a super fight in this. And that could be a real possibility. We could see a super fight happen next year between Stipe Miocic and John Bones Jones. I think if he gets past Ngannou, I think that's going to be Stipe's last fight, would be against John Bones Jones. Jones is certainly teased going up to heavyweight at some point. And Jones is pretty much cleaned out the division at light heavyweight. Controversially, though, so against Dominic Reyes. Hopefully at some point that fight gets revisited. But I do think if they back up the Brinks truck and put a super fight and give Jones an opportunity to be a champ, I think that could be in the future. But I think first you got to get past Francis Ngannou. And Ngannou, he's looked improved since snapping that 2-fight losing streak. Ngannou knocking out Rosenstruck in the first round, Junior Dos Santos in the first round, Cain Velasquez in the first round, Curtis Blades in the first round. So Ngannou looks like he's back in old form. So I'm really interested to see what has Ngannou learned, and that's going to be a very entertaining fight between Miocic and Ngannou. Hopefully, we see that fight sooner than later. Who knows how long Stipe is going to kick back and go back to firefighting, of course. As for Daniel Cormier, not the greatest way to end a career, but he is going to retire. But I don't think he'll exactly leave the UFC in a way. You will still see DC. I think he is a great commentator. He pointed out what Stipe adjusted as a in his post-fight interview tonight, he talked like a color commentator, like a great color commentator he is. He will still be doing color commentary for the UFC. He will have a great career as a commentator. So you do be a color commentator full time. That's what's going to be good for DC. He's got kids to raise, and he knows he's not going to. He knew this was his last chance to fight for belt, and now the window has closed. He's 41. He's not getting any younger. The guy has had a great career. He's only lost to good fighters. He's only lost 2 times to Stipe Miocic and 2 times to John Bones Jones. Other than that, he has pretty much cleaned out the rest of the competition. He will be in the UFC Hall of Fame. He's one of the best Strikeforce fighters too. He's a well-accomplished fighter. He deserves to retire. So I think there's nothing left for him, and he's just going to go enjoy retirement, be a good commentator he is. And, he's just had a great career. So I do think for Stipe, that's going to be what's going to be. And go enjoy retirement, Stipe. I mean, for DC, Joe, go enjoy your retirement. You deserve it. Be a full-time commentator. I enjoy hearing you every week on doing color commentary. You're one of the best at it. So happy retirement to you, Daniel Cormier. You've always been an ambassador to the sport. You've won the right way. So enjoy your retirement. That's what's going to be next for Daniel Cormier. And in the co-main event, the fight before that, Marlon Vera derails the hype train in Sugar Sean O'Malley. Granted, O'Malley hurt his leg in the fight. That was not the best thing to happen, but for Vera, statement win. Vera definitely overlooked in the UFC. Now will get some respect. Killing another prospect here, another Dana White hyped prospect getting killed tonight. So as for Vera, he's got 6 straight wins at bantamweight. So I'm going to pair him up with another fighter who won tonight earlier, Merab Dvalishvili versus Marlon Vera. I think that Dvalishvili has won 5 in a row, so I think that would be a really good test to see who is going to maybe make it up into the top 10. I'll get to Dvalishvili and Dodson in a moment, and in the same breath. For Sugar Sean O'Malley, first of all, he's taken a lot of fights in the last year or so, and I think it finally caught up to him tonight. Vera, a step up in competition. But in 2020, he's fought. This was his 3rd fight in 2020 already. He's beaten. His best win is against Eddie Wineland. Vera, a bit more experienced and sharp. But I don't think he needs that much of a step back. But I do think that for Sugar Sean O'Malley maybe take a little bit of a layoff from fighting is, I think, what should be next for him is maybe take a few months off, get rested, and when you're 100%, I think you fight another loser from tonight's fight card, John Dodson. I think you put those two in the octagon. I think that'd be a very good fight. It would be a better measuring stick if Sugar Sean O'Malley is a top 15 fighter or not. But I don't think he's killed at any point as a contender. He is definitely a young prospect, and Vera just had a point to prove tonight, and he did it. In the fight before that, at heavyweight, Jarinzo Rozenstruik rebounds with a win over Junior Dos Santos by TKO. In the first round, it was a bit boring. It was looking like I was thinking for Rozenstruik, the same thing that happened kind of to Francis Ngannou after losing to top competition. Then the light came on in the second round, and Rozenstruik took out Junior Dos Santos, and I think that's a big win for Rozenstruik. But it's not. But question is going to be who's going to be next for him. There's two routes I could go with this. I could say maybe the winner of Derek Lewis and Curtis Blades. Those two are likely going to fight each other sometime next year. And those two seem very interested in fighting each other. So maybe the winner of Curtis Blades and Derek Lewis. That's a real possibility. Or another prospect that's undefeated is possibly, if he wins, Augusto Sakai. If Sakai gets the win, I think that would be a really good fight between Rozenstruik and Sakai. And the winner of that fight could really vault themselves into a top contender fight in 2021. As for Blades and Lewis, sometime next year, they could be trying to vault themselves into being a top contender. Who knows what's going to happen with Francis Ngannou? If Ngannou does win the belt in the next fight against Miocic, I think Curtis Blades would have zero chance of fighting Francis Ngannou for the belt. But as for Derek Lewis, he actually has a win over Ngannou, so there is a chance if Lewis can get a win next year against Blades, Lewis could be right there in the title hunt, getting a rematch against Ngannou. A lot of pieces of the puzzle to be solved there. As for Junior Dos Santos, his career is kind of winding down. This is his second loss in a row. So I think this is he's starting to lose to prospects at this point. No, this is his third loss in a row. He's lost to Ngannou. This is his first 3-fight losing streak in the UFC. Do I think he's going to get cut? No, I don't think Dos Santos is in any danger of being cut. But I do think he will probably have to take a bit of a step down in competition. His last win was against Derek Lewis back in March 2019. But his wins are not against exactly tough top competition. Tai Tuivasa, who's on a 4-fight losing streak now. Blagoy Ivanov, Ben Rothwell. So that doesn't exactly spell out beating contenders. Maybe the guy that could be a step down for Junior Dos Santos might be... You could put him against the loser of... Maybe have they ever fought? Yeah, he lost to Overeem, so strike that. He's already has a loss to Overeem. I suppose you could put him up against Alexander Volkov, who's 1-2 in his last 3 fights. I think that could be an appropriate step down for Cigano. And Volkov, not Volkov a fighter that's maybe starting to look like he's starting to have a ceiling in the heavyweight division. So I think I'll go with that. Maybe Alexander Volkov and Junior Dos Santos is the fight to make there. And in the fight before that, Herbert Burns loses to Daniel Pineda. Pineda getting the upset via TKO. And what's worse is that Burns came in 3.5 pounds overweight. So he forfeits 20% of his purse to Pineda. Pineda victorious in his return to the UFC. This is his first fight in the UFC in 6 years. Comes about victorious on short notice. Let's see who Fight Matrix has next for him. It's running a little slow, so forgive me here. Okay, I think maybe next for Daniel Pineda might be another prospect in Sodiq Yusuff. I think that would be maybe a next step up for him. As for Herbert Burns, this loss kind of stings, not just losing, but losing and missing weight. That is a double whammy. I'm going to use Tapology's ratings tonight. Looks like the But as for Herbert Burns, who should be next? Burns ranked 109. I think Julio Arce might be what I think should be next for Herbert Burns. That is a bit of a step down there. And in the first fight on the main card, Merab Dvalishvili beats John Dodson by unanimous decision. Dvalishvili now winning 5 in a row at bantamweight, and definitely will see a jump up in competition. Dvalishvili getting a win against a ranked opponent in John Dodson. So yeah, I'm going to do a little lazy matchmaking here, put him up against Marlon Vera. I think those two are very similarly ranked, both on long winning streaks. Makes sense to put those two together. John Dodson maybe getting into the twilight of his career at this point. Yeah, Dodson 1-3 in his last 4 fights, with his only win against Nathaniel Wood. So Dodson kind of maybe falling out of the top 15 at this rate. I think you put him up against Sugar Sean O'Malley when he's healthy. Dodson is a good gatekeeper on, and that's what he is. He's a good, maybe top 15 gatekeeper at 135, nothing more. On the prelim card, Vince Pichel gets a big unanimous decision over Jim Miller. Pichel becoming all of a sudden becoming a contender at the 155 division. And his last loss was against Gregor Gillespie, who's not exactly a slouch either. So Pichel in line. Vince Pichel in line to get a big fight after a win over Jim Miller. Pichel now 13-2 in the UFC. Now ranked 33. According to Tapology. And I think for him, the next fight should be against Renato Moicano. Renato Moicano getting a win at 155. So we shall see. I think Moicano versus Pichel would be a really good fight. Book that. As for Jim Miller, still always a competitive fighter, just on the losing end of this decision tonight. I think that is 2 in a row for Jim Miller. No, he's 1-2 in his last 3 fights. He has a win over Roosevelt Roberts. Sandwich it between losses between Scott Holtzman and Vince Pichel. Miller, another fighter who's always serviceable as a gatekeeper at 155. Who should be next for Jim Miller? Currently ranked at 22. Maybe a fight against Narsat Hakparas would be good for Jim Miller. I think that would be a good gatekeeper fight there. Fight before that at strawweight, Verna Jandiroba gets the win over Felice Herrig via armbar submission. Verna Jandiroba now 2-1 in the UFC at strawweight. I think for her next fight should be against the winner of Randa Marcos and Mackenzie Dern. That's who should be next for Jandiroba. Elise Herrig. She's lost 3 in a row, has not won since 2018. So I think for Felice Herrig, it's likely the end of the road in the UFC. I think Felice Herrig is getting cut after tonight's fight. So probably Invicta or Bellator or whatever for that. Fight before that, Daniel Chavez beats TJ Brown on catchweight. Chavez misses weight by 1.5 pounds. What's next for TJ Brown for Daniel Chavez? Chavez probably not ranked high since he is a prospect. Okay, Chavez 325. TJ Brown, another fighter who's a debutante. So I do think Chavez likely fights TJ Brown, likely fights a debutante next. As for Chavez, who cares? I thing's not working on me tonight. I think Chavez is likely just going to get another low end fighter. The fight before that, at strawweight, Livia Renata Souza beats Ashley Yoder via unanimous decision 29-28, 29-28, 30-27. As for Renata Souza, she is now 3-1 in the UFC. Let's see if things working for. Rank 16. I think next for her should be the winner of Kim and Grasso, should be next for Souza. As for Ashley Yoder, that's her second loss in a row, 2-5 in the UFC. will probably be another bottom feeder still. I don't think she'll get cut yet. But I do think she will get a fighter that is near the cut line. I think for Yoder, probably the loser of Jinhu Fry, and Konklak Sufarisa sounds right to me. The loser of that fight will also probably likely be in danger of being cut. So I think put those two, see what spits out there. And in the early prelims, Chris Daukus beats Parker Porter, TKO. Kai Kamaka III beats Tony Kelly via unanimous decision. Next Saturday night, it will be UFC on big ESPN. It will be Pedro Munoz against Frankie Edgar on ESPN. Other fights in the fight card will be Alonzo Menefeld against Ovin St. Preux, Kakashi Sato against Daniel Rodriguez, Marcin Prashino against Mike Rodriguez, Austin Hubbard against Joel Selecki, Amanda Linos against Mizui Inoue. So not exactly the most entertaining of fight cards next weekend. But we do have, I think, is that on this card? No, it was moved. Okay. Munoz, Edgar trying to prove himself a contender at 135. Pedro Munoz coming off a loss to Aljamain Funkmaster Sterling, trying to get back in the win column. So now we shall see how Munoz versus Edgar does. That will be next weekend. I'll catch you then. Everybody have a good night. Please conserve power if you're in California. Avoid those rolling blackouts. Stay safe. Mask up. Good night.